Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in this world. This is Agent Lee with an update on the Ripple analysis. I wanted to add some additional points to a very uncanny head and shoulders top pattern. And the left shoulder is complete, head is complete, and the right shoulder is complete. Now, for any pattern, especially head and shoulders, two requirements have to be fulfilled. The first is that the pattern has to complete, and I think it's pretty complete. Second, and this is the most important, price has to breach to the downside, the neckline. This is where usually the failure point of head and shoulders come in. They may breach and come back up and fail. They may soar around it for a while and go up and fail. So when I combine the Elliott waves and say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 waves completed, and we have this ABC in red, could this ABC be the completion of the correction and we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and go up to the moon from there on? Yes, that is possible. There are plenty of instances where head and shoulders fail. I know. Been there, done that, and seen many of them. But I wanted to add one more component, and that is the cycles. I use the Sentient Hurst cycles for my measurements. But even visually, if you look at this from here to here, from this peak to this side, you can count that as one cycle. Let's go another cycle from here to here, okay? And so on. And except for this one, these cycles are measuring at around 500 days. 480 to 520 days. And if we then overlay the dominant cycle above that, the red ones, we can now get a combination, triple combination, pattern waves, and now maybe cycles, where we can say a cycle began here, peaked, and then declined. So from the 500-day cycle perspective, it was a bit right translated. But from a dominant perspective, the red cycle about 100 days, it was left translated. That means that this dominant cycle is currently pulling hard downwards, while the 500-day cycle could be and have left translated peaked on the first left side, early peak onto this 500-day cycle. But regardless, at around April-May time frame, the pull down effect will be doubled. Now bear in mind that there is always elasticity in the cycles. They don't always cookie cut fit 500, 500, 500 days of variance. And that variance could be much greater if the liquidity of that instrument, rather that coin in this case, is not very mature. But I'm pretty surprised by the consistent 500 closeness, proximity of the shorter cycles. And thereby putting in the dominant red cycle, the 1,000-day plus cycles, shows that regardless, even if this sows around and makes one more rise, this neckline is probably going to be around, and perhaps the price might sow up and down like a needle and a thread for a little while before really feeling the pull down effect of the 1,000-day cycle, and then compounding that in a few weeks from now, several weeks from now, the pull down effect of the 500-day cycle. Now, could price just skyrocket beyond the all-time highs of $3.34 and make maybe $5 and generate a right translated peak? Yes. Is that possible? Absolutely. But I think there's a big difference between possible and probable. So the pattern, Elliott wave sequence, now the cycles, the pull down effective cycles are pointing to a bias of the bear side instead of the bull side. So what is the safest thing to do? Well, for me, the safest thing to do is reduce your long holdings or stay out completely and go cash and wait for this to be resolved. What is the aggressive thing to do? In my opinion, it is to wait for the confirmation for the decisive break of this neckline before putting in any shorts. And yes, you can short Ripple on exchanges like BitMEX as much as crazy 20x leverage. So how do I get this target of such a low target for the blue sea wave? Well, if I measure the minimum, and let's say it breaks the neckline right here, and measure the minimum, it's going to land me somewhere in this zone. So if I draw in that zone, we're looking at a bit of a support area. So it could go minimum, let's say, and then from here, put in the price bottom and rise. But I think it's important to note that minimum is not called a minimum for no reason. Usually minimums exceeded. So I'm thinking in this proportion, where the big true support lies is in this realm. Somewhere in the range of, let's say, 1.12, 0.007. That's a big range, measured in percentages, obviously. So the key important thing is to wait for the completion and the confirmation. So far, price is sewing up and down around the neckline. That's very common before it makes a decision. Meanwhile, the dominant 1,000-day plus cycle and soon the 500-day cycle will be pulling hard down. I hope you find this helpful. Have a great day.